my name is Tori. This is Novel Life. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to a brand new video where I'm going to be chatting about romances that you need to read before the end of the year. I am primarily a romance reader. I love a good romance that's emotional, that's angsty, there's yearning, all of that. I love character development. It's one of my favorite things to read in romances. Now, I did just do a video last week where I talked about some fantasy romances that you need to read before the end of the year, so I'll link that video in the description box below if you want to go check that out if you read more fantasy romances. But I'm very excited to talk about the romances I have. These are basically some of the best romances I've read this year, and I think that everyone should read them before the end of the year. First one I have to talk about is Unloved by Peyton Corinne. If I had to pick probably like a favorite romance, this is definitely in my top 3. I loved this book so much. Now, I do plan to reread this book before the end of the year. I got an early copy of this book. I physically read this book on my Kindle and I loved it. Now, I do have the audio of this, and I heard that the audio is just amazing. It like elevates the story even more, which I don't know how that's possible. So I definitely want to re-listen to the audiobook of this one. But basically, this is the second book in the Undone series. You can read them completely out of order. They're interconnected standalones and all of that. But this book is a little bit different because it's a student and a tutor, but the tutor is also a student. Like, she just works in the student center and stuff like that. And our hero, Freddie, he is, oh my gosh. So he is a hockey player. You see that he's best friends from the hero in the first book, Unsteady, which I did love Unsteady as well. And then we have Ro, who is our female character, and she's best friends with Sadie, who is also from the first book. So it's just like their best friend's story. And I love this so much because if you are a people pleaser or a recovering people pleaser, if I will say that, you will really, really emotionally connect with this book. It really dives into the emotions of someone who, for the longest time, has just put everyone else first instead of themselves. And it's so interesting that Peyton Corinne can not only write so emotional, but she can write this beautiful romance between them as well. And this is more friends to lovers, I will say, and that's one of my favorite tropes to read. I will say it. I love a good friends to lovers. In this book, you see Freddie, he is needing a tutor. He goes to get tutoring, and you see that Ro is assigned to tutor him, and they kind of meet every week and stuff like that, and she's getting to know him, he's getting to know her, and they realize they have this like common ground of like people pleasing. I read this back in February, and I still vividly remember like crying at the end of this book. I just loved it so much. I love the character growth. Like, there is some triggers, I will say, with Freddie's story, so I would definitely check those. But I love the overall development, the romance, everything like that. Like, this just has angst, it has yearning, it has amazing friends to lovers. Like, they really are friends first, and they have like that deep respect of being friends first. And then they, bridge that gap to more lovers having a relationship. I don't know what else to say other than I want more people to read it. And yes, he plays hockey, but sports is not really the biggest part of this book. It's just like part of him as a character. Like, he's a hockey player. He's like the playboy on the hockey team. So if you're looking for like sports in this book, it doesn't necessarily have sports. So I wouldn't consider this a sports romance, even though he does play hockey, but you don't see a lot of that on page. So I love this book. I love Peyton Corinne. She's one of my all-time favorite authors. She will be one of my all-time favorite authors for like the rest of my life. I love her so much. So definitely read this one before the end of the year because I will be rereading this one. Another favorite book of the year for me is Revive Me by Nikki Castle. So you guys might have heard of Nikki Castle before. She writes MMA. That's what she's previously written. She writes what she knows, and she has her MMA series where they're all MMA fighters at this gym and stuff like that. But she wanted to take a step out this year and do something slightly different. Now, this book is so special to me. It has the most amazing disability rep in this book. It really, really got me. I just see myself in our hero in this book, and I love it so much. So, how this book starts off, you see our main male character, Roman, and you see that he is an MMA fighter. He's in the cage, like he's fighting, and something goes wrong during one of the fights, and he basically has an incomplete spinal cord injury. That's the prologue, first chapter and stuff like that. And you see that our female character actually meets him at a bar after one of the fights previously, and they kind of like have a moment where they're flirting and bantery, and that's it. They kind of go their several ways. She's a physical therapist, so after 2 years of him having this incomplete spinal cord injury, he goes to her place of work. It's just another physical therapist office, and she's assigned to work with him. And she doesn't say anything like, oh, he doesn't seem like he remembers me, like I won't say anything. So it's forbidden in that way, where it's kind of like that physical therapist with like a patient. Obviously, the ethics, you can't really cross those boundaries. So it's forbidden in that way. But what I love most about this book is Nikki Castle not only dives into the physical disability and like the struggles that someone with a physical disability has. Like he has an incomplete spinal cord injury. He has to use a wheelchair. He doesn't know if he'll ever be able to walk again, basically. But she also dives into the emotional and mental part of that, of having a disability and not having a body that works the way that it used to and not being able to do the things that you used to. Like that's a struggle in and of itself. And she really dives into that. Now, our female character, she does not give up on him, okay? She will fight tooth and nail, not only as a physical therapist, but as a friend. They spend so much time together. Like it's 3 times a week they're together. He's grumpy and broody for good reasons. And he's just like learning to try and accept himself, and that's hard to do when you have a physical disability. Like what I was just saying, like your body doesn't work the same way. So this is a beautiful romance, and yes, it's slow burn. Yes, like this is a little bit different than Nikki Castle normally writes, but I love what she did with this book. It's one of my favorites by her. I mean, I'm a Nikki Castle stan, but I absolutely love this book so much. It's literally one of my all-time favorites. Go read this book, please. It's just one of my all-time favorites. Now, I do have a trilogy to talk about, and it is a dark romance trilogy. So I've been going back and forth with dark romance this year. Sometimes I'm in the mood for it. Sometimes I'm just not. I really enjoyed this trilogy. It is the Edge of Darkness trilogy by Lee Rivers. So there's 3 books. I don't remember the titles of all 3, but basically I read all 3 in a weekend. I didn't leave my bed. I wanted to do nothing but read this trilogy, and that's what I did. So yes, it is very, very, very dark. It is kind of like a second chance romance too. I don't know how to describe this trilogy without giving a lot of stuff away, but Cade is our hero, and he has, in the first book, I will say, he has these inklings. They have this desire to basically off anyone that our female character has ever been with. You see that they've previously had a relationship. You kind of get flashbacks to that, and you see that they've had to keep it hidden because his sister is our female character's best friend. So she didn't want to like cross those lines of like, oh, I'm dating my best friend's brother. Like there's all this stuff like that. Now you see that Cade is struggling. You know, his father is in a mental institution. He's basically psychotic. Now his parents do have a, I guess you could say prequel. I read it after, but you don't have to read it before at all. It's only if you want more story with the parents. I loved this trilogy. I love the talk about mental health in this book. I love the talk about, you know, like 2 people who have not necessarily the best communication and how they can work through that. Like I said, there's a lot of triggers, specifically at the end of book 1 into book 2 and a little bit into book 3, but I love the dynamic, and when they're together, they're so good together, and I love that. So I don't know how much to say with this book because I read them all back to back to back. Like I don't want to say too much, only because I don't want to give anything away. Like it is going into it blind, just knowing there's triggers and checking those triggers if you need to, and then knowing that it's dark romance. I love this. And if you're looking for a little bit more darker romance, I have a mafia romance for you, and that is Be With Me by Gabrielle Sands. So this is the first in a House of Ferrero series. I think the second book might be coming out soon. I don't know if it's coming out this year or maybe next year. I had the best time with this book. I love a good obsessive hero, okay? One of my favorite things to read is when he's unhinged, he's obsessive, and he just knows what he wants, okay? Now, this book is also forbidden in the way that our female character is the daughter of someone running for mayor, like her father's running for mayor, and his biggest campaign point is taking down his family because he's part of the mafia family. He's the youngest. You see that he's struggling with that of being the youngest, of like doing basically the dirty work that whatever his siblings or his father or his mother tells him to do, he's really struggling with that. And so he kind of sees her as like, ooh, I can get information and give it to my parents, obviously. There was a part that really got me, and this has raspberry sprayed edges, and that definitely means something. But when I tell you, he's like, I know I should not want her, but I am so obsessed with her. Truly, he does that. Now, I love this for a multitude of reasons. I love the romance, but what I love so much is our female character is not like a naive woman. She knows exactly who he is, what family he belongs to. She knows exactly what he's trying to do. He's trying to get as much information as he can out of her about her father. And she doesn't want to give him anything because she actually wants to get out from underneath her father. She doesn't want to be like anything to do with him. She wants to make her own way in like the fashion world and stuff like that. So he kind of uses that as an advantage. So that's kind of how they get together in a way, like they're forced together. They're forced to like talk and stuff like that, is that he's like, you know what? I will let you dress me for this very, very, very like high profile event. And I'll say that you're the designer if you let me spend time with you and do some stuff for me, like kind of do some dirty work. And she's like, fine, whatever. I'm not going to tell you anything, my dad. but I will let you do that. I'll dress you and I'll, be there for you if you need stuff. So it's interesting, their dynamic, but I loved the outcome with the romance. There's a whole friend group. His brothers, her friends, that's kind of like all worked. They all are kind of like in the same circle. I think one of the couples in this book already has a previous duology. I have not read that, but I definitely want to go read it. But I love this mafia romance. Then I have Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan. I've just, come to the conclusion that Kennedy Ryan is one of my all-time favorite authors. She can write so amazingly. I mean, I've read a lot of her backlist, and let me tell you, I just love her writing. She can write just these emotionally impactful stories, and I love them so much. So Can't Get Enough is her newest release. I love the purple cover. Oh my gosh, I've read this whole series. So it's the third book in the Skyland series, and Skyland is supposed to be like East Atlanta, if that makes sense, if you live near like Decatur and stuff like that. It's very much set in that world. It's very, I don't want to say hip, I don't want to use that word, but it's very like modern. There's a lot of walking distance. It's a lot of like cool restaurants, cool places and stuff like that. So that's where all these women live. Now, what I love about Kennedy Ryan's romances is that they're older women and older men, if that makes sense. So they're in their late 30s, if I'm not mistaken, early 40s. And you see our female character, she is a boss woman, okay? She knows what she wants. You've seen her throughout the series. She is this just like powerhouse of a female. And I would like love to be best friends with her. Not gonna lie. And you see that she's at a party one night. She meets this man. She's very intrigued by him. They have this like insane chemistry. And then she finds out that one of her very new business partners, they're together. That's her partner, basically. Now, you see that they've broken up, but they're still kind of like keeping it for the press that they're still together for after this one party, because it's like a party that's everyone's invited to, always at the same time every year that they throw this party. So after they kind of like officially in the press break up and stuff like that, she's like, I don't know if I can continue this. And he's like, no, I'm going for what I want. Like, she's going to feel a certain type of way, but the way that we ended things was fine. We were at two different places in our lives, and she needs to understand that. And she's like, but this is basically a very new connection, like a business connection that I have, and I don't want to do anything to tarnish it. And so she's like caught, it's like a very, it totally makes sense of why she feels this way. So this is like a forbidden romance in that way. And she's just like pulled, and she's like, I want him. He's like someone I can see myself being with, but also like I have to make sure this connection I have with this businesswoman is also still fine. I loved it so much. Our hero is so amazing. He does not try to like tamper down her light in any way. He knows exactly how she is. What I love too about Hendrix, our female character, she doesn't want kids. And there's a part in this, there's like a part excerpt in this, in one chapter in this book that really hits me, because I'm also someone who doesn't want kids, and the way she explained it was just how I've always tried to explain it to people, but I never had the right words. So I really connected with this personally, and I loved it so much. If you have not read this book, if you haven't read this whole damn series, please go read it this year, but this one in particular because it came out this year. The last book I have is a second chance romance, and that is Left of Forever by Tara DeWitt. Now, I absolutely loved this book, okay? I was very surprised because I've tried to read Tara DeWitt before, and it was fine. Her books are just contemporary romances, but there's never been something to like make my emotions come out, okay? But this one really got me, because you see our couple, they're now divorced. They're in their 30s. I want to say they're in their 30s. They have an 18-year-old together, and he's going off to college. And you see that they were together from a very young age, like 17, 18 years old. She got pregnant, they've gotten married, and basically for, most of his formative years, they have spent making sure that the child is getting everything and anything and everything is possible. Like, their lives were devoted to him. And so as he was in their teenage years, they realized that they kind of like grown apart. So they've gotten divorced. And you see for the last 3 to 4 years, they've kind of co-parented perfectly fine. They don't really go into each other's lives that much. I think what I love most about this book is that people can change over time, and sometimes you have to be separate to realize exactly what you want, especially when you have a child. Like, the child is the center of your universe when you have them, and it's really hard to figure out who you are outside of that child. And sometimes you have to separate and kind of like learn yourself, especially when you've been together for so long. And then you can come back together at the end, whether that's, like getting a divorce and coming back together, or separating and coming back together. And you can really like have this like all-consuming romance, because you love yourself, you know what you're doing, you know what you want out of life. And if that partner that you had, you can come back together and see if your, views align still. And that's what I loved about this book. So basically, when they drop him off at college, they road trip back home together. And it really got me because the kid's 18 in here, and, you know, they had to drop him off at college, and they said goodbye, and, like, the mom, our female character in this, is, like, going through, like, when I dropped him off at kindergarten in first grade. And at the time, I read it around when my brother graduated high school and was 18, and he's off to college and doing all those things. And, you know, I don't see him very often now, and I was also there. We're 12 years apart. So, like, I saw him when he was in kindergarten and all of this stuff like that. And I remember I have, like, little pictures and they, you know, from every grade where we dropped him off for the first day of school. So it was very, like, I don't know, I just felt like that emotion too. But yeah, I loved it because they kind of like road trip together back home. They rekindle, they talk a lot, you know, they have awkward silences, and that's funny too. But while this is like on the shorter side, it's not a very long audiobook. I listened to the audiobook. It's only like 9 hours. I loved it. I love a good second chance romance. I think that DeWitt did this beautifully, hit all the emotions for me, and it's one of my favorites. Those are just some of the books that I think that everyone needs to read, especially if you're a romance reader before the end of the year. If you have any for me, or if you want to contribute to the recommendations for other people to read, drop them in the comments down below. I would love to know what romances you think people need to read before the end of the year. But if you've made it this far and you want to let me know, leave me a leaf emoji, the green leaf emoji for Left It Forever, because it's a green cover. But thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content from me. As always, I hope you're living a novel life, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.